All right, y'all, this is the big one. Marvel Snap just released a blog outlining the proposed changes to the collection system, a total revamp of the economy in Marvel Snap. Let's talk about what we know. First things first, the name of the new system is Snap Packs. They're planning on bringing it in at the end of April or the beginning of June. That means that there is kind of a long gap between these potential release dates. We could get this as early as April 29th or as late as June 3rd. Under the current system, the blog acknowledges several problems for returning players, new players, and veteran players. Returning players find themselves falling behind with a lack of ability to catch up to the current metagame, something that I've seen expressed very often in my comments a lot. New players struggle to catch up. They have the same problems returning players do, but exacerbated because they aren't actually getting a faster way through Series 4 and 5, just a faster way through Series 3 with the most recent update doubling the speed of Series 3 acquisition. Finally, veteran players, even people like myself, often have to rely on luck with spotlight caches to acquire cards. And one thing that all of these people have in common is that if you miss a card, there is no real way to go back and get it, even if it only showed up last week. You are at the mercy of the spotlight cache system. So if you make an unwise purchasing decision, especially if you choose not to purchase something that later gets better, you have no way of actually rectifying that situation regardless of how much money you have. These are all identified problems that they say they are working on and trying to fix in this update. I'm going to be trying to go through each of the ways that they have said they are going to fix them and talk about how much that will actually make a difference and what the hinge points of this system will be. We're going to start with the first panel of their 3-point plan, which is greater control over the cards that you earn. The basic premise of this system is that you will be able to purchase packs in the store. These packs will have differing contents. If you ask me, it looks a little bit like they were trying to sort of beta test this with the random Series 4, Series 5 card in the Sanctum Showdown shop. That sort of looks like a very early version of what we might be getting on Live. On Live, there's going to be multiple, more targeted versions of that. The 5 snap packs that will be available for purchase are: first, a Series 5 pack. This pack includes all of the cards from the current season and from one previous season. It is unclear whether this will allow you to get cards early, but it looks like they will still be sticking to a weekly release schedule for cards, meaning that what will happen is as the new card comes in, an older card goes out. It also contains cards from one previous season. It is not clear to me whether or not these cards will be the exact previous season or if seasons will be sort of matched with each other. Like, let's say we're getting this in June, we look at the June season and then it's paired with the cards from last June's season. It could be anything like that. It could be the cards from June and last June, the cards from June and May. I actually genuinely would like to know. For Series 4 packs, the aim is a little bit wider. It includes all the Series 4 cards being released in the current season, which I think to me implies, as they later confirm, that they're going to be making a lot more Series 4 cards, and then 2 previous seasons. The wording here leads me to assume that what's happening is that you have the current season and the previous season for Series 5, and the current season and then 2 previous seasons for Series 4. It's not incredibly specific, but I would say 75-25, that's how I'm reading it. Then there will also be collector's packs for Series 3, 4, and 5. These are going to contain everything that isn't in those above packs. And what I think this means is that they're going to be doing different gradations of prices. Like, let's say you go and get the new cards, those are going to be at a relative discount, but if you want to go get the older cards, those are going to be like full price. I'm saying that based on the idea of like, that's kind of how we do it now, right? Like, the value of a spotlight key is like higher than the value of like buying one card in collector's tokens. They want you to go and get the new content out of the game. So I'm guessing that the new sort of system will have a similar dynamic. The real question here, though, is what are the prices and what currency are we going to be using in order to get this stuff? Because that's what this is all going to hinge on. Does this make the game easier to acquire cards in, or does this make the game harder to acquire cards in? For this, we don't actually have the full information yet. What we do know is that the currency we're going to be using is collector's tokens. And we also know that every spotlight key will be converted into collector's tokens at a rate of 1 key per 3,000 tokens. Is this a good rate? For someone like me, who has all the cards and for whom spotlight keys are only ever there to acquire the new card, it is slightly above average. The math I've done suggests that if you do not have any cards, this is slightly better than the current rate. It will be about 2,800 per key, seems to be the effective value at the bare minimum. So going to 3,000 is pretty relevant for me. That is sort of a, like, you know, that's a little decent. It also makes me think that when they went to the additional 1,000 tokens in the spotlight caches, what they did was make it like more in line with what their future plans were to be in terms of generosity, because I will also say without that jump from 1,000 tokens to 2,000 tokens as the fallback reward, the average value of a key would be about 500 tokens less, around 2,300 on average. So this would represent a much more meaningful jump had they already not like been a little bit generous with giving us that additional amount of tokens in the spotlight caches. So the real question then is going to be, how many tokens are these things going to cost? How many tokens are they going to cost? Because I didn't see that information in the blog. Maybe I am super duper off base. I'm literally going to stop the video, cut back in, and go read it back just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let me go take a look. Nope, nothing. We don't know the prices at all. But what we do know is like what we can expect a general range to be, which is to say, I would be fairly surprised if the packs cost 6,000 tokens or more. Or I guess 6,000 is sort of where I look at like the high end of this. So on the whole, unless these packs start costing 9,000 tokens or what have you, I think what this represents is the system getting a little bit cheaper and a little bit easier to access. It's not necessarily the deck chair shuffling that had me worried in this context, but I will only be cautiously optimistic until we actually see what the numbers for the packs are. If we're able to get a new card for 5,000 tokens, then that is probably a meaningful upgrade. If the pack for a new card now also contains a chance at getting previous cards in the season, that is probably a meaningful upgrade. If we now have a way to go back and get the cards that we did not have, that is probably a meaningful upgrade, but all of that is contingent on us getting this stuff without them charging us more for the privilege. Hence my only cautious optimism about this right now. It looks good, but I need to see some hard numbers first. Note also that spotlight keys convert into tokens at a rate of 1 to 3,000, both for the keys that you have right now and on the collection track. So you're not going to be losing out on anything by like not unlocking your stuff on the CL. That's already going to be, it's going to be 3,000 tokens once this system hits. It looks like, to me, my bare minimum math suggests that this is probably a good rate, and that spending keys in the upcoming few seasons might not be the best option. Let's go back to number 2 now, because this is where I'm getting a lot of my information about whether this is going to be good or not, right? So they say a couple of very specific things here that I'm going to read out because I think it's important to understand their exact wording. The first is, not only can you target older or lower series cards, but they will be cheaper than buying individual cards. They say that specifically. They also say, new series packs will also be cheaper than just buying a featured spotlight card directly. In other words, I feel like 6,000 tokens is the ceiling on this. They're going to keep the featured spotlight card at 6,000 tokens, and then everything else is going to be less. And it's a question of like the gradations of less. But if that is true, this is a tentative thumbs up from me, because they are converting our keys into tokens at a good rate, both on the spotlight track, meaning future keys to be realized, that is a good rate, and They are allowing us to get older stuff without raising the price of the game. In other words, this looks like an increase to player agency. It's giving players more options without charging them for those more options, basically. I do wonder if this is enough for all the people who want a drastic overhaul. What this looks like to me is that they're keeping the total net spend in like a fairly similar, maybe like reduced by 10% kind of area, where it's like, it's still a luxury good, but they're making it a little bit more, accessible. You have a little bit more agency. What I'm interested in is how many people are interested in having that agency versus just interested in spending less money. I think one of the things that Marvel Snap has taught me is that there are a dedicated cadre of players who will spend no money at all. And while I do think the system likely makes it better for them because it gives them more of an ability to wait and see what these cards are, it can also punish them because it's putting the ability to get those old cards into a pack with cards they maybe don't want. Like, it's introducing a discount, but at a chance of RNG. The one thing I can tell you is that I think this makes it better for everyone who is trying to maintain a full collection, because as far as I can tell, if the snap packs for a new card are always going to be cheaper than buying that new card, and you only have that card missing in Series 5, you're going to be fine. The worry, of course, is that it doesn't actually provide agency for those people who want to wait and then pick the best card of the season and then go get that. They will still have to do that with tokens. On the other hand, they will have way more tokens now. What this effectively does is take your spotlight keys, which you could not wait with, and convert them into a resource that you now have many options with. If you want to wait for that card and make sure that you're buying something that's worth it, you can wait until the end of the season and buy it for full price at presumably 6,000 tokens, right? That is much more easily obtainable now because your keys are spending for that, basically. So, on the whole, I think this is good for everyone, but it's probably more good for whales who now have to spend a little bit less in order to be collection complete. Agency buffs will hit everyone. Someone in my position who has to buy every card, this is basically like whatever percentage off they're going to give us, that's how much I'm saving, effectively, by buying the new card pack instead of whatever, right? It's going to be like a 15% reduction in my spending or whatever. I really want to know how the agency stuff lands, though, because the way I'm envisioning this is like, okay, so buying one card is 6,000, buying the new card pack is like 4,500 or whatever, right? And so you can go for an RNG chance at 4,500, or you can just use your resources appropriately at 6,000. I think this is a chance for them to see what a token shop that doesn't suck looks like. Again, cautiously optimistic, but I really do want to see some actual hard numbers, because right now I'm making up numbers in my head, and when I'm making up numbers in my head, they all seem really good, but we need to see some actual numbers on this. Ballparking, my guess is that this probably makes the game cheaper by a marginal amount and increases agency by a large amount. What I'm worried about is that people will still be rolling the RNG of the packs instead of just going and getting the card that they want. They also mentioned that collector's packs will be priced at a significant discount. I don't know what significant means in this context. Again, I need some numbers. They also announced that they're going to be making more cards every season, which if they're going to be making the game more accessible and giving players more agency, I think that probably makes sense. This is a chance for them to really experiment with a lot of content being introduced into the game. One of the things I've talked about with other creators, I'm not as nostalgic for this as they are. In fact, I don't think it's a very good idea, but I've seen people express that they really enjoyed when the token shop first dropped and there were just like 15 cards coming out at once and they wish they could be like expansions like that. I think maybe, what if they're doing like a Series 5 card and then a Series 4 card every week? That would be like a lot more content than we have now. Maybe that is what they're looking at. Maybe that is possible, right? And then they also mentioned custom packs, which is sort of something that it's like, I'm going to file that away. It would be really cool if it happens. I'm not hanging my hat on it though. but it would be very cool. As a conclusion, I would describe myself as cautiously optimistic. I need to see some actual numbers on this. I need to know how much these packs are going to cost. I know it says a significant discount. I know it says a discount, but that's all relative to the price of, I'm assuming, 6,000 tokens for a card. And I don't know if that's going to stay the same. And so I can only assume, but I can't be sure. And so I won't be sure until I see the numbers. On the whole, this looks like a pretty massive increase in agency, while also being a fairly reasonable decrease, or not decrease, decrease in terms of how much someone will have to spend once they finish collecting all the cards. Although, with the release of new cards, it might get even harder to have everything. You will now be able to have a more reasonable ability to target these cards, because instead of getting spotlight keys that can only apply to the newest card, you are now getting tokens that allow you to get whatever you want in whatever way you want. That is, I think, probably the major upside of this system. So what do you think? I, as I've mentioned, am cautiously optimistic, but I need to see some hard numbers. This looks like it could be a legitimate upgrade in terms of agency, which I think is something that, while a lot of people, like, you might not even notice the impact that lack of agency has on you, but I think you will notice it when you have it, is sort of where my head is at. I'd be really interested in diving into this further. I might do another video tomorrow if we get any more information, if we get some questions answered. But for now, all I can say is,